Well, I'm going to ask Brother Stacy to come forward and give us a... Don't you love how I do these surprises? He's going to come forward and bless us.
Appearance of Yah, I think in a big part came to heal the wounds. Ishmael's 13 years old, come to give the words of the promise to somebody who needed them. When don't we need God to appear in our lives? And do you experience a secure attachment with Yah, our Elohim? It's interesting that if you take a look at that Vav, it has to do with secure attachment, and that's what Yahuwah, whoever that was that came with the other men, he was concerned about healing the wounds. Maybe Sarah had some wounds from what happened with Hagar and Ishmael and those kinds of things. We don't know the daily life of each other, and we ought to know, so we know how to pray. But the appearance was for a reason. And that reason I would like to say is a reason of relationship. It's a reason of why Abraham was a friend of God, why his faith was something that Yahuwah valued that. And he who honors me, I will honor. He who continues in faith then will also be benefited by the appearance, by Vayera. Abraham was considered a friend, and when you look at that word Vayera, it talks about the secure attachment. That's the first thing in the Vav. The Yod Resh has to do with the hand of the higher other that is there as in the presence of Yeshua, and more so with the Aleph ending the word Vayera, that even being vocal in that sense, that there was something that Elohim wanted to do. He wanted to emphasize his secure attachment. He wanted to participate, somehow bear some sort of evidence for Abraham and Sarah of his friendship with them. And many have studied and have stumbled and are still stumbling over the plural aspect of Elohim. Let's just look at the Aleph as Elohim for a moment. And if you take that word Elohim, you have the Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem. That's what you have. And in the old script, what that means is that Yah is excited. Aleph, Lamed, the authority of God, the presence of the strong authority. Yah is, and the Hey, he is excited as any father or mother would be. Like the call came out to wash the hands from the mother, because we're going to do something with the kids. Yah was excited, and so he had to appear. Sure, he was going to bring judgment, or he didn't know if he was going to judge Sodom and Gomorrah yet. But there was something to do, and he first came to Abraham. So Yah was excited to give of his abundance, to give of his presence to his friend Abraham. And that's the rub, Elohim. But from the old Semitic script, the suffix im is not only to be interpreted as plural, as if understanding Elohim as the Godhead, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or something like that. But it is also to be understood as he gives, or he hands us, the im is the yod mem, he hands us abundance. He hands us what we need and then more. And he is willing to do it. He is joyfully willing to do it. To share his life, his abundance, most graciously with us, as he did with Abraham. As one friend to another. He couldn't wait to come down and to see his friend. Sure, he had some important business at Sodom to do, but there wasn't judgment plan for Sodom yet. As one covenanted to another. Yah rejoices to do this. He rejoices to do this, and he rejoices over you. Isaiah 62 says that so shall your God rejoice over you. He's bound to you by his own covenant, and he's going to rejoice over you with whatever it is he wants to bring to your life. Isaiah 62. And we bore witness of Yah's covenant to us in last week's Lech Lecha, and we see it again in this week's Vayera, in that the God has an affinity towards us. If you blend the Lamed Kav, you come up with, in the old script, with affinity, and God was showing his affinity for Abraham to appear to him and to strengthen him in the promise that he had made. The Western Semitic script would say of the Vav that it represents a tent peg with the idea of joining or attaching things together. But the later Paleo script prevents, it talks of the shape of it preventing the rope from slipping off the peg. Okay, we know that. And that it's for the use of attaching one thing to another. But it also includes the grammatical conjunction and. As Matthew brought from the Bereshit scripture, Bereshit bara Elohim et. Well, there's two ets in there. One is with a conjunctive vav on it. Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim ba'et haaretz. So it brings in that connectiveness, a secure attachment. And however, the older script would suggest the notion of security by the Vav, connection or bonding, especially with the Creator or source of life, close to our psychological notion of secure attachment. Children to their parents, spouses to each other, children of God to their Creator God. The Bible is full of this notion of connection and belonging and security provided by Yahuwah, as represented in the Vav, as well as he appeared, Vayera. He appeared. And what the Vayera is saying then is because of the need for bonding, because of the need, this need for secure attachment in the promise, this personal security for Abraham, the higher other came forth prominently. He came forth prominently. And the prophetic, he came forth prominently in the prophetic, and he came forth prominently in what was going to happen with Sodom and Gomorrah. But at the same time, Yah willingly and joyfully gave of his presence for Abraham's sake, to flesh out his affinity for his friend, as can be witnessed in the relationship between the Lamed and the Kav. Yahuwah continues to fulfill his affinity for his friend Abraham in helping to flesh out the promise, give him a reason to continue in his faith. And he will befriend you as well. Yahuwah honors faith. Two are become one in the covenant, and that means that we are not alone. Vayera.
Bereshit 18. And Yahweh appeared to him by the terebinth trees. And as brother was saying, what greater thing is it that Yahweh appears and wants to appear to his chavar, to his friend, to his friends. And when is it that Yahweh is going to appear to his people, to his friends? He's told us in the scripture. He is going to show up and he is going to appear at his Shabbat and at his Moedim. That is the timing when we are to wait, because that is the time of preparation. So this week's Torah portion I gave it a title. You know I like to do that sometimes. Nus Moed. It's the Feast of Fleeing. It's the Feast of Fleeing, because we need to know, brethren, that Yahweh is going to show up. We need to know that Yahweh is going to appear. But we need to know when that is going to happen and to have an expectation because of the days and the times that we live in. Because this week we just got done with the election. And what you have seen and what I am seeing is a downward spiral. People are willing to vote for anyone who opposes righteousness. It doesn't matter if they're whoremongers. It doesn't matter if they're criminals. If they oppose righteousness, people are willing to vote for them. That's right. And that is the seriousness of injustice. That is the seriousness of injustice. I believe that Yahweh is showing us through this week's Torah Parsha our prophetic future. I truly do. How to escape the denigration and destruction of an imploding society. Where to go and when to go. Because we need to know that he's going to appear. We need to know that. Otherwise it's all for nothing. We need to know that Yahweh is going to appear and that we are his chavarim, his friends. We need to know that. But we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to know his Moedim, his times and his seasons of appearing. So this week I entitled this portion, Nus Moed, the Feast of Fleeing, because he's given us these things so that we can be ready. Verse 17, and Yahweh said, shall I hide from Abraham the thing which I must do? You see, I was offered many, many years ago, I was offered a church in the country. If only I would teach against the law of Moses, the traditional church status quo, and the pre-tribulation rapture. And that was a big crossroads for me in my life, a time where you had to choose. It was a time of choosing. And obviously you know the choice I made. And I was upset for many years, I really was. But now I realize that Yahweh, He sent the strong delusion to people. He sent the strong delusion to people to hide the very things that he must do. He sent them the strong delusion of lawlessness. He sent them the strong delusion of the pre-tribulation rapture because he did not reveal to them the things which he must do. But we are his chavarim, and through his moedim and his shabbats, he has said what? Shall I hide from you guys the things which I must do? No. He hasn't hidden from us the things which he must do. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I made the right choice and that you, obviously sitting at Torah to the tribes, made the right choice too. That he has not hidden. But the pre-tribulation, rapture, lawlessness, that is all there to hide from the lukewarm believers the things which he must do. But he has revealed it to his friends, and he reveals them at specific times and at specific places. His plans are only going to be revealed to his Havarim, his friends, those who are the heirs of the promises given to Avraham, that is the Melchizedek heirs. That's you and I. Bereshit 18 verse 19 speaks of Abraham's true children. Look at verse 19. Abraham's true children. In the Hebrew, they yada. They intimately know. It's not carnal knowledge. It's not experimental knowledge like da'at. But they, verse 19 in the Hebrew, they yada. They intimately know. They also tazavah. And that comes from the Hebrew word mitzvah. They keep the covenant commandments. Tzavah. They also shema. What does that mean? They guard. They guard the things of Yahweh with their very life. They are so important. Don't trample over the things of Yahweh. We guard them. They, zadikah dabar, verse 19. What does that mean? Zadikah dabar. They're in the spoken order of the Melchizedek. All of these words, yada, tzvah, shema, zadikah dabar, appear just in that one verse, 19. Because that is what the children of Abraham do. And that's the life that he's called us to. He's called us to intimately know, yada, to tzavah, keep the mitzvah, to shema, to guard the things of Yahweh, to zadikah dabar, be in the spoken order of the Melchizedek. All right there. He has provision for us. It says in Devarim, Deuteronomy 32, verse 31, for their rock is not like our rock. What I cling to, what I depend on, it is not what they cling to. It is not what they depend on. Where I find comfort, where I find strength, where you find comfort, where you find strength, it's not where the world goes to find their strength and comfort. Our rock, it's not like their rock. Even our enemies themselves being judges, for their vine is like the vine of Sodom and the fields of Gomorrah. And we got to experience their vine this week just in the polling stations, right? Their vine is the vine of Sodom and the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall, and their clusters are bitter. They're bitter. Their wine is the poison of serpents, and their cruel venom of cobras. You see, the vine is an emblem of the principle of faith that is rooted in people's minds. So the vine of Sodom, it produces the grapes of gall. It's a false principle that resides in the soul, which produces what? Evil deeds. Fruits are symbols of our actions, are they not? Fruits are symbols of our actions. People's actions or behavior differ according to what is being implanted in them. Correct? What has been implanted in you will create your behavior. That's why we are the zirah, physical implanted seed, which produces a certain kind of fruit. It's what's implanted in you that then determines your behavior. Hosea 10:1. We're going to have a lot of scripture today. But the overall thing I want you to understand is that we are now living in a time where Yahweh is saying, get your life in order, get your house in order, because we are coming upon Nas Moed, the feast of fleeing. And if you think that this can continue on in this world for much longer, Yahweh has laid out through this week's Torah portion where, what, and when you are specifically to make your move to be as wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. Because you can stick your head in the sand and I can teach a message that will make you all clappy happy, but that's not what I've been called to do. And I'm not going to compromise, because you know what? I prayed for many years, Yahweh, would you just shut the doors of Torah to the tribe? I'm done. I don't want to do it. I want to stay at home, read, study, and be with my wife and kids. And Yahweh showed me through prayer that I'm to stand here and continue. If there is one person that comes through, that those doors stay open. And you know what? He stripped this place down. And 1 year I sat here, I stood here and taught, and there was one person here. And from that, now look. So I continue on. And somebody spoke to me yesterday, said, Matthew, why are you doing this? I said, you know what? I'm just a simple guy. I said, I'm trying to love my wife, love my children, and do the best I can. And one thing I do know is that I've been called to speak and teach his word to his people. But what that means, I don't know, as far as I don't have a plan. I just do what I'm called to do. And that's why there's never going to be a compromise. Because I don't have these big grandiose plans. It's not about me. It's always about, and there's the freedom, right? There's the freedom. Because it doesn't matter. And I said to my wife on the way here, my plan is if there's one person there, I'll speak and teach the Bible. If there's 50 people there, it doesn't matter. That's about as big as my plans go. Because in that is where he works. You see? But when we start getting these puffed up ideas about what we can do, then guess what? Sidelined. And you just become another ministry. And that is not what we're about. We are about preparation for the times and the Moedim that we live in, right? Can you agree for that? Because ultimately, we're all looking for the same thing. We hunger and thirst for Zaracha, righteousness. Righteousness. Hosea says, Israel is a degenerate, empty vine. He brings forth fruit to himself. According to the multitude of his fruit, he has increased the altars. The better his land, the better the pagan pillars they built. Is that true, or is that... Oh, what a great land we all landed in. And the greater the land, the more pagan pillars they build. Is it true, or is it true? Everywhere. What an opportunity squandered. What an opportunity squandered, the United States of America. And now they're trying to turn it into where I came from. But the reason that we all left England was because we wanted to flee the king. We wanted to flee the oppression. And finally, people got smart and said, no, we're going to build a constitution. So the things that happened in England, in France, and in Europe don't happen over here. And now they've sold us up the river with the same things. Same things. You see? Because that's what happened. The better his land is, the better the pagan pillars they built. I mean, look at the symbolism right there in that text. How many church members are an empty vine? If he does not bring forth fruit, or as the prophet says, if he brings forth fruit for himself. You see, just like Lot, who sat in the gate of Sodom, and then what happened to Lot? He became one with Sodom, did he not? Today, I'm so sad to say that Christianity tries to live with biblical concepts, yet is at one with the world. And it doesn't work. Yeshayahu, Isaiah 5 verse 1. Now let me sing to my well-beloved, a song of my beloved regarding his vineyard. My well-beloved has a vineyard on a very fruitful hill. Verse 2. So he expected it to bring forth good grapes, but it brought forth wild grapes. What kind of fruit are we producing? Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 49. Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. You see, people tend to focus on the degradation of homosexuality when they talk about Sodom and Gomorrah. In fact, that's where we coined the phrase sodomy. But what does Ezekiel tell us was going on? A lot more. Now this is the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant. They were overfed. And they were unconcerned. Now you look around and you see if you live in a world like that. I mean, literally. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen. Yeshayahu, Isaiah 13, verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And going back to our text in the 8th verse of Bereshit, Genesis 19, it's so easy, isn't it? It's so easy to look at the 19th chapter and the 8th verse, and we've all done it, let's be honest, to just judge Lot so harshly with what he did to his daughters. I mean, who's done it? I mean, I know I have. You judge Lot so harshly for what he did to his daughters. But do we judge ourselves so harshly when we send our daughters to public re-education camps where they're taught abominable sexual and contraceptive practices by the age of 7? Do we judge ourselves so harshly? How does that differ? I don't see the equal weights and measures there. Right? Because the world wants to get hold of our kids and turn them into little mini caricatures of themselves. Handing our children over to the government so that they can do with them what they want. That's not right either. You see, verse 9, look at verse 9 of chapter 19. The system will press hard, just like the men did, they press hard against us if we're not wanting to hand over our very lives. They will press hard against us if we don't want to hand over our children. You just experienced this by deciding to take your children on vacation at a not organized time. And the system tries to press hard on a mother and intimidate a mother. Oh, hang on a minute. This is the mother of the children. She can do what she wants. They're her children. But the system says no. They try to press hard and intimidate you to do what they want. But we say no. We say no. The Hebrew there is patzar mecheod. Patzar mecheod. It means to press hard, or they become insolent, arrogant and presumptuous. And that's what happens. You go to the doctor's office with your kids. They become arrogant, insolent, and try to press hard on you that you should have monkey poison injected into your kids. And you say, hang on a minute, no. And you're weird, because you're questioning what they're trying to press hard on your children. They're trying to press hard against us. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse. That's what all of this Obamacare is about. So you better get used to pressing hard back. Otherwise, you will be bulldozed right over with your rights. I'm serious. You have to stand up and be ready. Even when you get in your car and drive down the road. Because that is what is happening out there. And we see this. They are arrogantly presume that we'll hand over our children for vaccines, hand over our children for their teachings. And it's all a death agenda. It's all a death agenda. But let's look at the 17th verse of chapter 19. Escape for your chaim. Look not behind you. And do not stay in any part of the plain, but escape to the mountain, lest you be consumed. Verse 17. Escape for your Chaim, look not behind you, and do not stay in any part of the plain, but escape to the mountain, lest you be consumed. And of course, many are going to think that I'm joking. Just like they did in the Torah. Well, are you joking? Is that not what the inhabitants of Sodom say? When you start to talk about these things, well, he's joking. He's joking. Verse 18. Because of fear for his Chaim, his life, Lot did not heed the words of the Malachim, the angels, but he wanted to go into the nearest small town and seek refuge. Are we going to have the faith of Lot, or are we going to listen to Yahweh's angelic majesties? That's what it's going to come down to. Are you going to have the faith of Lot, or are you going to listen to Yahweh's angelic majesties? Because people are going to think you're joking. Yesterday, I had UPS delivering a bunch of diesel cans to my business. Gallons and gallons of diesel. And I wheeled them down the street in downtown, and I was like, it looks kind of odd. There's this guy. And people ask me, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm getting ready for when the zombie apocalypse happens and the Ebola happens, so I can get 1,000 miles away from all of the disease and dying people. You think I'm joking? Right? All right. See ya. But the pattern repeats itself with the words of the prophet Jeremiah and the words of the prophet Yeshayahu. His fugitives, oh yeah, and you will be fugitives and vagabonds. His fugitives shall flee unto Zoar, just where Lot fled, Isaiah 15 and Jeremiah 48. In our Parsha, when Abraham moves, what does he do? Don't listen to the rabbinic Jews who tell you, you know what, you can't eat meat and dairy together. Because, how do they deal with this Torah Parsha where Abraham brings out meat and dairy? Well, there was 6 hours between the meat and the dairy. The whole text is about mahar. It's about mahars. It's about rushing, being quick. And you're telling me that he decided that they violate the whole text. The whole text is about being quick. He hurried, he was quick. He ran, he hurried. But all of a sudden, you know what? We're going to wait 6 hours before I go out there and get the dairy and the meat so you can put your rabbinical nonsense on me. And people sign up for that. No, you shouldn't take a kid and you should not boil it in its mother's milk. That's the truth. But this is the first lasagna right here. Or the first cheeseburger in Scripture. It really is. It really is. And it's kosher. It is. Let's just call it what it is. But the Hebrew word here is he mahar. He mahar. He makes haste. And it means he makes haste. He is liquid and he flows headlong, even fearfully. And that's what we're to be. We're to be a people that mahar. We are to make haste. We are to be fluid. We're to be headlong, and we're to be doing it fearfully. Not afraid of the world, but in fearful reverence of Yahweh's times and seasons. Because it's important to us. But we need to be liquid, we need to be fluid, and we need to be able to move fast. Because that is of utmost importance. In our Parsha, this is what Abraham demonstrates. This Parsha is pregnant with fluidity, shifting and change in a time of fearful trouble. And I believe that we live in such a time. I truly do. The time of fleeing is when, though? That's the question. When are you supposed to flee? 17:21. Not 21 minutes past 5, but chapter 17, verse 21. You're like, is it? No, it's actually Bereshit 17, verse 21. It happened when? In the Hebrew, a moed. It happened at a moed. But what moed? When we're all preparing our chapter 18, verse 6 is very telling. The Hebrew there in chapter 18, verse 6. So what I'm telling you as I bring forth these verses is the text is telling us when and where to flee. In chapter 17, verse 21, it tells us the Hebrew word there, it's going to be at a moed. In chapter 18, verse 6, gives us more information about that moed, and it's got to do with cakes, flat cakes that are ugar, unleavened flat cakes, which is confirmed by verse 18 of chapter 18. Again, at the moed I will return. So even Lot, who's not exactly on the fast track to righteousness, okay, even Lot knows about it. Because in chapter 19, verse 3, he makes the two malachim, what does he make them? In the Hebrew, matzah, unleavened bread. Finally, in chapter 21, verse 2, at the same moed, a year later, than 17, verse 21, Sarah gives birth to Isaac at Pesach, Passover. Watch out for Passover. Passover is a time, it's the festival of fleeing. It is the festival of fleeing. That's what it's about. It's in our prophetic future. This is the days of preparation. It is the feast of fleeing. It always has been and it always will be, and that is why it is there. But he has sent them strong delusions because they are not his friends. They are not walking in covenant. And you and I have been called Chavarim. And he has revealed to us what he is about to do. If you have the faith and you have the eyes and you have the ears to see. Which you don't need to see out of your ears. But if you have the eyes. We don't want any Nephilim in here seeing out of their ears. Luke chapter 9, Luke chapter 17. Luke 9:62. And Yahushua said to him, no man, having put his hand to the plow handle and looking back, is fit for the malchut of Yahweh. Don't be like Lot's wife. If we are walking this walk, we have set our hand to the plow and we don't look back. We can't look back. Luke 17:28. Likewise also, as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from the Master Yahweh from the Shamayim, and destroyed them all. Even so it shall be in the day when the Ben Adam is revealed. You see, he's excited to appear to his people. He is excited to appear to his people, and if his people loved him, they would be at his Shabbats and his Moedim, and they'd have a bloody clue what's going on. They are asleep at the wheel, they think you're joking, and they don't give a rip. It is what it is. It's funny, isn't it, that I've got diesel. You aren't going to be laughing when you can't go anywhere and you're in the FEMA camps because you went to where they're selling you your wares and supplies because you didn't have the idea of his Shabbats and Moedim. And many, I look around and there's many faces that aren't here today because they're literally in the mountains. Seems like people are moving, thinking about moving or making preparation. And it goes on to say in Luke chapter 17 verse 31, in that day he who shall be upon the housetop with his belongings in the Bait house, let him not come down to take it away. He that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his Chaim, life shall lose it. And whosoever shall lose his Chaim shall preserve it. It's about giving up your life. You have to come and know the miraculous beauty and wonder of Yahushua HaMashiach. You have to. You have to surrender. You've got to give up your life so that you can find it. You have to. And that is where we all have to begin. Whoever shall seek to save his Chaim, life shall lose it. And whoever shall lose his Chaim, life shall preserve it. I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed. That happened to us down in California, didn't it, brother? That was rough. It really was. Man. He was fine. Me and Brother Dane were two men in one bed at 3 a.m. He nudges me, gives me his earphone and says, hey, you want half of the earphone? So I plug it in. This was how bad it was. We are there in the two men in one bed listening to Alex Jones at 3 a.m. talking about Ebola or something, trying to get some sleep. I tell you, it's amazing when you get on the road with Yahweh what happens. In that night there shall be two men in one bed, and one shall be taken and the other shall be left. Two women shall be grinding together, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two men shall be in the field, and one shall be taken and the other left. And they responded and said to him, where, Master? Where are we going? Where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? Yeshua told the disciples about the fleeing for safety. And the apostles even asked him, where, Master, where? They wanted to know where the place would be. Then Yeshua said, whosoever the body is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Verse 37. Eagles. Are you serious? Eagles. I mean, did you catch that? Eagles. Whosoever the body is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Did you see Yahweh's plan for you? Do you see Yahweh's plan for you? It was by eagle's wings that the woman will be transported to the place of safety in the earth. Gilyana, Revelation 12, verse 4. We do serve an awesome, awesome Elohim. And the woman was given two wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and a times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And how do we define who that woman is? She has the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach, and she keeps the commandments. So she has a clue about his Shabbat and his Moedim. That's how you define who the woman is. And there's a clue in Ayah of Job 39, verse 27. Does the eagle mount up at thy command and make her nest on high? She dwelleth and abideth in the rock. Selah in the Hebrew, or of course Petra in the Greek. Now you understand why many are preparing for Petra in the Christian Zionist movement. It comes from this rock, Selah, Petra, upon the crag of the rock and the strong place. A strong place is a place of safety. From thence, that means from the rock. Remember, their rock is not like our rock. She seeketh the prey. I mean, they're building bunkers in the Arizona and Nevada desert. That's their rock. But their rock is not like our rock. She seeketh the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Her young ones also suck up blood, and where the slain are, there is she. So we're to follow the pattern. The pattern is, we're not going to be traveling, brethren. We're not going to be traveling for more than 6 days. Can you understand that? We're not going to be traveling for more than 6 days' journey, because our refuge will be within a short enough distance from our homes, just as Yeshua warned the inhabitants of Jerusalem, enabling them to flee with little food in their possession or within a period of 6 or fewer days, in order not to flee and travel on the Shabbat. Isaiah 16:14 says, there is a place called Petra in the Greek, Selah in the Hebrew, or the rock that is in the wilderness, that will take outcasts like those of a wandering bird cast out of her nest. And you and I are going to feel like some wandering birds cast out of our nest. Travel to a place where the eagles go to search for food. Luke 17:37. Yeshua referred to the book of Job, where from Selah or Petra the eagles seek the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Job 39 verse 30. And even Isaiah said these flying creatures were like a wandering bird that's cast out of her nest. You're going to be cast out of what is cozy and comfy. Verse 3, going to hide the outcasts. Betray not him that wanders. Let my outcasts live with you. Be a shelter to them from the face of the plunderer. From the extortioner is at hand. For the extortioner is at hand. Who's extorting the people right now? The government. The plunderer ceases, the oppressors are consumed out of the land, and in rachamim, mercy, in my womb, that means from Rechem, shall the Keseh, the throne, be established, and he shall sit upon it in the Emet, the true Sukkah of David, judging and seeking mishpat, judgment, and bringing Zedekiah speedily. So Isaiah in the 16th chapter tells us that Yahweh is going to rescue us from the oppressor, those that are extortioners, and in mercy, placing us in his womb of safety, he's going to establish his throne, and it's going to be in a true tabernacle of David, where we are going to find Zedekiah, and it's going to be speedily, just like Abraham didn't wait 6 stinking hours. He was hurrying, he was speedily, and that is our call, to speedily take hold of and grasp the Melchizedek reality, because that is what is so pressing in our time. And if you don't, then you will be laid off and cast off to the side, and you won't know, because you'll be too busy building your own kingdoms. Too busy building your own kingdoms with your own agendas and your own plans. But Yahweh says, no, just walk with me today, and lay out and walk in what I show you today. But we're too busy about building big things down the road that never materialize and shouldn't materialize, because they're carnal and they are the work of men. And the crazy thing about ministry is that you can trick yourself, and I don't use that word lightly. You can trick yourself that you're doing things for Yahweh when really all it is business. All it is business as usual in the guise of religion. And people get deceived. People get deceived. Because ministry is about you and me walking together. That's all I do, is facilitate. You have the answers, I have the answers, I facilitate, expose the text, and we delve in together. And that's why it's wonderful to have so many people that dig into the text together, because we're all walking this out together. I just kind of poke you guys with a stick. So that you can oh yeah, and we all start to have the conversation. Because this is about having a conversation. It's not one way, it's two-way. How many of us wanted to have a two-way conversation when we were back in the church? right? But you can't. That is why we're instructed by the apostles to rebuild the fallen tabernacle of David, is because of Isaiah 16 verse 2. We're instructed by the apostles in the 15th chapter of the book of Acts to rebuild the fallen tabernacle of David because it's our end time refuge. It's our end time refuge, and Sukkot is our practice and holy rehearsal, Mikra Kodesh. And that's what we're doing. And did you get pressed a little bit by the authorities at Sukkot? And did you press back? We did. We did. Mishlei, Proverbs 14:26. In the fear of Yahweh is strong confidence, and his place and his children in Israel shall have a place of refuge. Revelation 13:10. He that leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He that kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the endurance of the emunah of the Israelite Kedoshim. This is the faith of the saints. In Hebrews 11 verse 7, by emunah, Noah, faith, Noah, being warned by Yahweh of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, just like Abraham. He was warned about things not yet seen, but he moved with haste, speed, and with fear. And that is the message today. You have to move with fear, haste, and speed about things that are not yet being revealed, but are being shown to you through his word. By emunah, Hebrews 11:7, Noah, being warned by Yahweh of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, made an ark to save his Bait house. By it he condemned the olam, the world, and became heir of the zaduchah by emunah, the righteousness by faith. You see, we are in the days of Noah. And Yahweh has given us all sufficient warning. We are to be moved by fear of Yahweh, moved by fear of Yahweh, not fear of man, to prepare a safe place for our house, because from that safe place we will condemn the world. Listen, from that safe place we will cower in fear? No, we will condemn the world and become heirs of the Melchizedek reality. That's your job, is to condemn the world and become heirs of the Melchizedek reality. Genesis, Bereshit 19, verse 17. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in the plain, escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And verse 30, and Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him. For he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, and he and his 2 daughters. These scriptures warn us to take flight, like the eagle or even the dove that we mentioned in last week's Torah portion. But to take flight where? To the mountains. Bereshit 19:30. To the places of safety during the great tribulation, as Lot and his family were instructed in the 17th verse. To do before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is to take flight. Get out of the city where sin dwells and there is no dependence of Yahweh in the city. Many, many years ago, I got into mountain climbing. And I tell you what I experienced. At elevation, you see the fragility of life. And I would come back down to sea level, and you would see that no one is even depending upon Yahweh. But you get some elevation under you, and you feel fragile. You are literally walking a line between death and life, and it is a footstep. Elevation brings fragility. The mountains bring fragility. And that's what Yahweh wants us. He wants us to be fearfully and wonderfully dependent upon him, not asleep in the matrix down at sea level, where you can lull yourself asleep with the pagan pillars and the monuments to think that you're great, mighty, and strong, and that you don't need him. Put some elevation under somebody's feet, and all of a sudden, they're faced with the reality of their fragile life that we live and the awesomeness of the Creator Yahweh. Amazing stuff, amazing stuff. So we see that these scriptures tell us to take flight, tell us to take flight to the elevations, to the mountains, to a higher altitude. Matthew 2:14. So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. Did Yeshua flee? Did Yeshua's family flee? And so fulfilled what Yahweh had spoken through the prophet. Out of Mitzrayim I have called my son. You see, there's a number of people in the scriptures, including Yeshua, that were hidden away by Yahweh for a season from the government for various reasons. We just don't like to talk about it. We need to understand that the earth is Yahweh's footstool. It's not the government's footstool. And I'm not anti-government, I'm just anti-slavery. If our government was doing what it was put in place to do, I would be supportive, but I'm against slavery. And, thank you, oppression and illegal mob judgments. Because if you're a believer, you have to stand. Justice is only just when it's administered justly. If somebody is guilty of a crime that means they are to be put to death, then they must be put to death swiftly. Otherwise, it is an abomination to have people on death row, to have them go and drag through the courts. That is not of Yahweh. You see, it's all been so convoluted. It's all been so perverted. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. There are many mansions. So that means, brethren, there are many places. There are many places. Many places that Yeshua is preparing for the end time saints. Not just one place, but many places. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by Yahweh that they should feed her there 1,260 days or 3.5 years. Now, I feel bad for this guy. He had a dreadful name. Hippopotamus. Hello. I mean, you go to Starbucks and say, what's your name? Oh, write that on my cup. Hippopotamus. He was a bishop of Rome during the 3rd century. And he interpreted this text of Revelation 12:6 as a time when, quote, the tyrant is to reign and persecute the church, which flees from city and to city and seeks concealment in the wilderness among the mountains. So the bishop, let's just call him Hippopotamus, in the 3rd century, he interpreted this text that the believers would flee from city to city and eventually end up in the mountains. So Hippopotamus believed that brethren would be fleeing the cities and going from one city to the next, but between their journey from city to city, they would seek concealment in the wilderness among the mountains. I've been handed maps lately. It's very interesting. People travel from all over and sometimes come here, so a brother did last week, and hand you maps. I go, okay, and I take things very seriously that people spend time in prayer. I go home and when everybody's in bed and I get my apocalyptic glasses on, and go, ooh, what have we got here? And it's the most exciting adventure that one could ever have in life. I mean, it's amazing. You get to meet phenomenal people with some crazy ideas. And you know what? Some of it matches up with the text. It makes me wonder. Wonder. But why bother going from city to city when you can just leg it and hide in the mountains? Matthew 14, verse 21. And they had eaten about 5,000 men, besides women and children. And immediately, he didn't delay. There wasn't 6 hours. He was rushing in a hurry, very fast and in fear. Immediately, Yeshua constrained his talmidim to get into a ship and to go before him to the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain alone to make tefillah, prayer. And when the evening had come, he was there alone. You see, we're not to hide our light under a basket. We're not to just leg it and flee to the mountains. But Yahweh has a plan and a specific strategic purpose, strategic relocation for us. We're to proclaim the coming kingdom. We're to proclaim the coming kingdom just like Jonah did and the prophets before us. And then, when? Then we're to retreat to the mountains for refuge after our work is done. You go into the cities, you proclaim the coming kingdom, you retreat. You go into the cities, you proclaim the coming kingdom, you retreat. You proclaim the coming kingdom. Matthew 28:16. Then the 11 Talmudim disciples went away into Galilee, into a mountain where Yahushua had appointed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some still doubted. And Yahushua came and spoke to them, saying, all power is given to me in the Shamayim, the heavens and in the earth. Go therefore and make Talmudim, disciples of all nations, doing mikvah upon them in my name, teaching them to shoma, guard all things which I have commanded you. And see, I am with you always, even to the end of the Holam Hazeh, this age. Amen. You see, I see time and again that we're called away to the mountains of refuge for safety to hear that still small voice and gain the power. We're to go to the mountains so we can have refuge, so that we can hear the still small voice, gain the power to enable us to drive out the evil and deliver those in need in the cities. So that you can go and proclaim the kingdom, and then you go and refill. Go and proclaim the kingdom, then you go and refill. The mountains are where we await our marching orders to the next city of proclamation. It's going to be cities of proclamation. Mark 3:13, and he went up again into a mountain. If we are following Yeshua, we must walk in his ways, and we see him doing this time and time and time again. Are we going to listen and do what he said? Are we going to go to the mountains, and then are we going to go into the cities for a specific purpose? That means you're an apostle, called out for a specific purpose. You don't go into the cities so you can go and get all of the stuff at the FEMA camps. You go into the cities so you can proclaim the coming kingdom, and then you leg it to the mountains before they incarcerate you, and then you get into prayer to hear the still small voice so you can go back into the cities to proclaim. It's going to be like special ops every day. It's going to be awesome. It really is. It's like, let's go. Dan, dan, dan. It is. I mean, it's going to be great. Who's going? All right. Dana be totally up for it. Jacob's already ready to go. All right. There is a grain house down on 6th and Madison. We are going to take the grain house at 4 a.m. in the morning. I mean, it's... All right, and then we'll have all the children. All right, we will be back at 1800 hours with a ton of grain. We want matzah, bull soup for dinner. And tomorrow, I'm having fun in all seriousness, because otherwise you'd all be crying. I mean, you think you have a good life now? It's going to be amazing in his hiding place, in his refuge, walking in his way. He has not delivered us for a spirit of fear of man. He hasn't. But he is bringing us into a new realm of living fully, of camaraderie, of relationship, of family, and of safety. We're all fractured and split up, and we long to be with one another once a week. We're going to be longing to get back to those mountains every single night. And they came and they went up into a mountain, and he called to him who he would. And they came to him, and he ordained 12 that they should be with him, that he might send them out to proclaim and to have power to heal sickness and to cast out the new world order. I mean, Shadim. It's the same thing. It is. Bloody devils, demons, new world order. By following this scriptural pattern, I believe we'll be able to rule in the midst of our enemies, just like it's written. Yeshayahu 26 verse 20. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were, just for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. Yochanan 1:21. He said, I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of Yahweh, as said the prophet Isaiah. If Yochanan HaMatbil, John the Immerser, was out in the wilderness and the mountains, proclaiming a message of the coming of the Mashiach, if you and I believe that he's about to appear, that our friend is about to appear, then shouldn't we be doing and making preparation for the same thing? Or are these just words on the page that we like to talk about, but we don't really walk out in faith? That's why I decided to go and get a ton of diesel, because I'm going to walk this stuff out.
You're going to drive it out.
Well, all right, I'm going to drive it out. Okay, all right, you got me on that. I'm going to drive it out. Hopefully, if I can get out of the mechanic shop with still some change in my pocket. Right, Jacob? Buy those old trucks, and got to pay for those old trucks. The woman in the wilderness in Revelation 12, she represents Yochanan HaMatbil, John the Baptist. And she'll cry in that wilderness. She'll cry in that wilderness with that very same voice. That's what we've got to be. That's what we've got to be. In the day of tribulation, we will mount and rise as the turtle dove, as the eagle, and enter into the crevices of the earth and the clefts of the mountain rock, in the wilderness of the earth, and the unrighteous will weep and mourn, and they will gnash with their teeth. Tehillim 72 verse 3. The mountain shall bring peace to the people. It will. The mountains, you will find shalom. You'll just get to the mountains, I tell you. My father died when I was 13 years old. I watched a lot of my friends either commit suicide or die. I was very afraid of death, very afraid of death. I got saved when I was 24 years old. I was a very violent, angry man, and I was afraid of death. And Yahweh gave me tools. Because you know what? You can get saved, but you're still left with the consequences of your sin. And I was left with the consequences of my sin. And I was an angry man, violent, and afraid of death. So Yahweh, through prayer, started to lead me into avenues to help me overcome those things. I got into mixed martial arts, and I overcame violence and got delivered from violence through getting beaten up and realizing that it was, an exercise. But I did that for several years. And I got into mountain climbing because I had to come face to face with my fear of death. And you know what? I overcame that. Why was I even going to talk about that? I can't remember. I went off on a rabbi trail. But it was really going to mean something if I could recollect what on earth I'm going on about up here. Oh, this is it. Thank you. The verse. The mountains shall bring peace to thy people. So I went to the mountains and started mountain climbing out of a need because I was afraid of death. And I knew that Yahweh was going to show me and face me with my fears. And when I first started climbing, I was terrified because I came face to face with death every single weekend. Because, oh no, not me. If there was the standard route up a mountain, oh no, I'm not taking the standard route. I'm going to take the technical route. I'll figure it out along the way. Ended up in all kinds of crazy situations. One time, a friend of mine, we're coming down from Mount Rainier, and literally the crevasse opened up beneath him. We're tied together on a rope. He's gone. He's gone. And I see this rope grab me. I'm gone. I'm going down the slope, and I'm going right over the edge where he just went. And I am literally, with my pickaxe, trying to self-arrest. I get like 8 feet from the edge, and it grabbed. And I literally started laughing. I was in shock. And I started laughing. And I just hung there for like 15 minutes. And I could hear him screaming down in this hole. And finally climbed up, and I'm still laughing. And he was offended. I thought, I don't know why I'm laughing. But it was shock. And you know, then we had to cross a glacier that whole afternoon, and it was starting to melt. And every footstep we took, we heard a crack. And we were like, oh, this is the one. We're going. We're dead. But you know what? That mountain that was a place of me confronting my fear, once Yahweh dealt with my fears, those mountains became a place of shalom. Yahweh's asking us to deal with our sin, to confront that which we've been running from, so that he can deliver us. He can deliver us. So now when I go to the mountains, and now I haven't climbed since I've had children, before children. But it was a time just like the writings say, the mountains shall bring peace to thy people, and the little hills by Zadakah. You've got to be in the Melchizedek covenant for his protection. You can't be lawless, and you can't get into the rabbinical hierarchy, because you have got to be walking as the children of Abraham do, in expectation that you are the friend of Yahweh and that he's going to show up for his friends at his Moedim. Tehillim, Psalm 72, verse 16, we're closing. There shall be a handful of corn in the earth upon the top of the mountains. That means there's a remnant. We're the handful of corn that's supposed to be upon the mountains. That's a remnant. That's just a few. You're a handful of corn. Popcorn. Job 40 verse 20. Surely the mountains bring him forth food, where all the beasts of the field play. Isaiah 65:9. And I will bring forth a seed out of Jacob. Seed, zerah, physical, you and I, out of Jacob and out of Judah, an inheritor of my mountains. We are an inheritor of his mountains. And mine elect shall inherit it, and my servant shall dwell there. Ezekiel 20 verse 35. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you, Panaim el Panaim, face to face. Rav Shaul, he comforts us. He wants to comfort us with these words, reminding us that deliverance will come through sanctification of the Ruach and belief in the truth. 2 Thessalonians 2:13. That we will be delivered. 2 Thessalonians 3:2. Our protection is guaranteed, and during this time, Rav Shaliach Shaul states, but the Master is faithful, who shall establish you and keep you. Yes, he will keep you all from all evil. He will. He will keep you from all evil. Yahweh says his people can be hidden until the indignation is removed. There will come a time to enter into our houses and shut the doors. There really will. There will come a time to enter into our houses and shut the doors and hide ourselves until the indignation is past. Yeshayahu, Isaiah 26 verse 20. Come, my people, enter into your rooms and shut your doors all around you. Hide yourselves for just a little while until the displeasure is past. For see, Yahweh comes out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. This week, I tried to get further into the text. I tried to get into Isaac. I tried to get into the Akedah. And all I could do was see and see and see the world that we're living in. As these votes were coming in, all I could see is, what is Sodom and Gomorrah? Is it literally? What is it? And I was impressed and impressed and impressed that this is a time of Yahweh's Moedim. This is the Nus Moed, the feast of fleeing, that we need to have the eyes to see, the ears to hear. Shut the bloody door, please. Thank you. Good night, Josephine. Excuse me. I deal with it every day at home. Excuse my French. I lose track. This happens every day. I'm in the Word and the door's open. And the internet audience is like, what is he talking about? Well, if you were here, you would know. This is the Nas Moed. This is the time, the feast of fleeing. So when we look around and you start to see that your civil liberties are being burnt before you, be encouraged that Yahweh has a place. Be encouraged that as they try to enslave you more, that Yahweh is the one that will release you from captivity. But it is time to take stock in your lives and go, why am I living in the middle of the city? If you are living in the middle of the city, my advice for you is to look to the mountains. Look to the mountains. That doesn't mean that you have to go and buy a house in the mountains, but look to the mountains, get out, start walking around, start looking about or being in community with others that are into the mountains or know about the mountains, because we need to make the preparation for his remnant. That little hand of corn is going to be in the mountains. Not so that you can hide your light under a basket, but so that you can be filled with his mighty power, his mighty righteousness, so that you can refill, replenish, and then speedily go out into the city to proclaim judgment and mikvah those that are ready to receive the living Torah, Yahushua HaMashiach. As they put up their pagan pillars because of the great land that we've been brought into, you now are to put up his great banner of righteousness in your communities. So I believe it is truly, as we come upon his feasts these next months, as Passover comes upon us, I will be watching and making these preparations, because I believe he gives us prophetic warning through his scripture. Gives us prophetic warning to be prepared, but also to take great comfort that he is appearing to his friends, that he has revealed these things to us, but he has blinded those who don't have the heart. And you know what? This message, many people think, well, he's joking. Well, that's exactly what they thought in the days of Noah and in the days of Lot. Brother, will you come up and close us out with a couple of thoughts on the Paleo?
Vayera, the Vav. There's a reason why Matthew spoke of fear. If you divide the Vav, which is a secure attachment, which is that mountain axe, holding on the edge that Matthew talked about, that secure attachment face to face with one's Creator, with one's God, but also face to face with one's fear. When you separate the Vav, the Vayera, Yera has to do with a flowing of the insides, or when we're facing our fear, we feel like we're being turned inside out sometimes. And it has to do with being afraid and having much more than strong emotion, sometimes maybe laughter, hanging with that last connection. So it's a different way of looking at He appeared. Yes, Yahuwah appeared at the last moment for Matthew and his climbing partner in that story, and it's a good example of Vayera, where that secure attachment came. One is face to face with their Creator, with the flowing of one's insides for fear's sake, to be afraid, Yera, to be afraid. And so there is the example. Face your fear, but let your secure attachment be face to face with your Creator, with your Heavenly Father. Wait for it. Matthew was waiting for it. He was grabbing for it as he was sliding down the mountain. So whatever the circumstance is, wait for that secure attachment and know that there is someone greater who is going to honor your faith. There is someone greater who has made you his son, his daughter, and there is someone who is participating in your life, and that not even death, it means annihilation. This is only the zera, the seed. This life is only the seed germinating, pushing through the circumstances, honoring Yahuwah, Yeshua, as we live each day. Find that secure attachment and attach, and overcome the fears, but know that they will be there. Vayera. Heavenly Father, thank you for the clarity of direction that we receive from your spoken word, by your Ruach. Continue to breathe through us the very breath of your life, Heavenly Father, and knit our hearts together as one, even as you asked the Father Yeshua that they would be one. Make us one, even as Elohim is one. But in our unity, let us experience your abundance, your grace, your kindness, your prophetic insight. Give us insight into the hearts and minds of those around us. Make us effective in this harvest in which you have placed us of the end days. Bless us each one with the strength of your presence. I ask in your blessed name. Amen.